VR Chat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission? To seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts. To discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind. And to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
Right on, everybody. Welcome back to Gunter's Universe. I'm your host, Gunter S. Thompson. This is the show where we discuss VR and interview some of the movers and shakers in the tech and VR industry. Tonight, I have two people from the company Contact CI. On my left, we have Tom Buchanan. He's the chief of product. Tom, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. We also have Craig Douglas to my right. He's the Chief Executive Officer. You found your way to VR Chat.
Hello.
Craig, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Excited to be here, Gunter. Appreciate it.
Excellent. And for those of you wondering, what is Contact CI? Well, let me tell you. Contact Control Interfaces is creating haptic human-computer interfaces to simulate the sense of touch. Contact CI's mission is to develop and foster a wide-scale adoption of haptic technology, which simulates a realistic sense of finger focus, touch, and unlocking the human potential only possible with intuitive and natural human-computer interfaces. Did I get that right, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
Spot on.
Oh,
Spot on. I'm doing my job. Let's see if we can keep this going. So to start things off, let's do the kind of obvious beginning stuff. Tell me about your lives personally before Contact CI, and we'll start with Craig.
Yeah, definitely. So grew up in kind of Midwest America, have kind of normal families in the sense of siblings, parents, in the sense of kind of grew up in the same household. Had early exposure to a lot of gaming and kind of computers in the household through my dad working in the tech field. It was a lot of fun kind of seeing all of those early games like kind of on the PlayStation, and that side got me excited into it. But Tom and I met while we were at school in Syracuse, New York, and that's kind of where my passion or my obsession for VR came from.
Oh, nice. Syracuse. Cool. And so that's where you guys, that's the connection?
Yep. And
what's your backstory?
So I am, my family owns a campground in South Jersey, actually. So I kind of learned how to fix things, make things, whatever, outside. Sure. And then kind of that led me to Syracuse, bioengineering, and then that's where Craig and I met and a couple other founders really got this whole thing going.
Bioengineering, right on, man. What made you want to get involved in bioengineering?
Diabetes, actually. Just kind of family thing. Yeah, family thing kind of brought me into the, like, okay, cool, let's like learn about it more. And then kind of wanted to get into more of the prosthetics of things, and then kind of VR. This is all during Oculus kind of getting going, and then one thing led to another, and here we are.
Cool. All right, excellent. Couple little notes to the audience. There are new people coming in, and I'm going to continue to address when new people come in. Welcome to Gunter's Universe. The lag is getting crazy. I may move us to a private room if this gets too bad. Craig, what's your performance like right now? What's the frames? Are you feeling like everything's okay, or are you getting motion sickness?
I can handle. I'm good. I can live. I can do well.
All right, we'll say mercy when either of you are like, okay. I need my ginger ale. But for those of you that are coming in, please have a seat. And if you don't know what's going on, it's a talk show. You have a seat, you listen, that kind of thing. For those in the audience, if you see somebody, not being cool, just messing with people, vote kick them for me, because I don't have eyes everywhere. I need your guys' help to make sure things are cool. And with that, let's keep going. Okay, so you guys met. You found each other. Was it just you two, or did you find your other team back then, or was it after you started kind of working on this project that you then went and found more of your team?
Actually, funny enough, we met each other originally completely through Contact. We had two mutual friends that were in the engineering school that kind of originally around sophomore year, one of them had started talking to me about, why can't we use our hands? It's like similar to the Power Glove. The other one on the other side was really good friends with Tom. This was our good friends Tim Meyer and Ben Margraf. And they kind of brought the four of us together while we were at school to start working on the project. And they've still, the two of them have had some involvement over the time period, but kind of were more involved during that school period. We left after we graduated in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have power gloves, by the way? Just side note. You own it?
I don't yet. I will have one at some point.
eBay. I almost bought one on eBay.
There's been many of times though the eBay purchase has been contemplated, and one of the guys who works in the product development office with us has one, but us ourselves have just never actually bought one because we can't bring ourselves to do it.
Yeah. Super cool.
But it is bad.
So, Oh yeah, it's so bad. It's so good. Like
absolutely,
exactly. Power glove with buttons and all that, or actually,
that would be cool.
Go ahead.
No, we were joking around about making it one of the avatar skins for the different glove representations during prototyping. Is just seeing the super glove, the power glove there. But I think we saw Dexmo is one of the other haptic gloves in the space that's working on some stuff. So if checking out different stuff in the environment, they use it as one of their 3D models now.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's cool. So when did the company get started? Is this something that happened last year? You've been working on it for years. What's going on with that, Tom?
Yeah, so it was the junior year of college was 2014. And kind of we were able to get some initial grant funding from some school competitions, and then Syracuse had a student sandbox organization that over that summer we were able to kind of take us engineers and here's how business works, really. Just the basics. And then that led into our senior year. We kind of formed a bunch of our capstones around developing out different haptic systems. Craig himself is the finance and accounting background and did his business design capstone around it. And then that graduation in 2015, and then our first angel investment was that following fall, 2015 then. So a couple of years in now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been running
experts,
I try to shy away from that. We're still learning every day, but I appreciate the thought. Sure. It's been a long time that we've been kind of not very public about our stuff inside of the VR community itself. This is more one of the few times we've come forward to really kind of make publicity or kind of talk to people about things. We've been to a lot of conferences. I think originally, actually, you and I met at OC2, I think was back in the first time at the Beach House there. And I think one of the first times Kenny, Tom, and I had a conversation was at one of the early Oculus community events. And so it's been something that we've been working on for a long time and really focused for about 30 months of full-time development on the product. We've done a little bit of getting product into the market recently with some alpha testing with some different teams like Warp Media in Stockholm, or Baby Giant Hollenberg, which is based in LA, or some of the research teams at Mississippi State University. Those are all kind of teams that we've recently gotten gloves to do kind of first market testing this fall. So it's been a long time getting to that, but we still have kind of a pretty far road that we need to before this is a mainstream consumer thing. But we want to keep doing kind of what we can to validate the haptic technologies by doing different market and pilot tests like those that we're currently working on.
So that's cool. And so I want to talk more about that, but let's rewind and let's tell people, well, what the hell are we talking about? Haptics. Not everybody here is VR nerds like us. So what is haptics? Why is it important? Do we want it?
Yeah, you want to handle that, Tom?
Sure. Yeah. So, Gunter, you had said most people, or everyone's in VR here, or most people are in VR.
Maybe
in
half.
This room? Maybe half. So the half that are, and the other half, maybe you've ever picked up an Xbox controller or even your phone for that matter, and it vibrates at some point or another based on some sort of interaction. That vibration is the most basic kind of haptic interaction you're going to feel in your everyday life. Just to kind of signify whether it's you're touching your screen on your iPhone or Samsung, or you're just interacting with this object, picking it up, it's going to vibrate just to show that something happened. It kind of brings that next level into the game rather than just kind of a touchless interface, which once we're now in VR, your Vive controller, your touch controllers are going to have a little bit more refined haptic sensations in them, but there still is that next step to really get to your full hands and being able to pick things up with your fingers and touching them as if you are in real life. And that's really what has brought us to what we are doing is the having your hands tracked in VR as well as putting that haptic sense of touch on top of it to what we are doing is
very exciting stuff. I can't imagine what our crew is going to do with haptic technology. These are real people here interacting. They may touch certain just head pats. I'm thinking like they just pat each other in the head a lot, and they'd feel that. They'd really enjoy that. I think half the community, 80% of the community here, I think, does head patting all the time.
I think one example right away that's relevant to here in the show. I mean, when we were getting prepped beforehand, we all had a bit of a difficulty, or at least myself. Not I want to speak for everyone. Had a bit of difficulty getting settled into the chair. I think with being able to have a haptic glove, touching onto the chair, feeling that okay, there was a device there. If I let my avatar go behind it, I can get it set up easier than when I was kind of just stuck in between it looking for that sit button. So there's lots of possibilities that are just simple like that there, all the way up to like, trying to get people's full fingers so they can like pick objects up naturally like they would in the real life and things like that. There's kind of limitless possibility that comes with the potential of the human hand having a natural sense of touch inside of a digital world.
All right. Welcome to the show. Have a seat, buddy. We're talking about haptic technology, which is
Yo, Gunter, all I gotta say is your player model is fucked up, man.
Where'd he go? Where'd he go?
It's like someone had control of it.
It's such an insult. It's such an insult, though. I know. It's such an insult, though, because this is modeled after my own face. Am I really that ugly? I mean,
I think it looks sweet. Oh, I think
it's a good one for sure, man.
That is the right answer. Nobody else wanted to get picked. That's the right answer. Thank you very much.
Look at all the hearts coming your way.
Down to the universe.
No. Thank you guys for being here. I normally don't try to do that, except I have to every show because this is a public event.
I wish I could catch the hearts that are in the air.
I know. We count them like if there was a counter or something, we could find out how much everybody really. There's a lot of hearts flowing this show. Actually, it's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate it, everyone. It's good to have you here.
So when you can grab things and stuff, like right now, I have these controllers in my hand. These Oculus Rift controllers, the touch controllers. They are very much controllers, though. I mean, it's great. I can do thumbs up and stuff, and it's especially when I first tried these things a couple years ago. I mean, it was just like, oh my god, I can point and give freaking heavy metal rock signs. I mean, these big deals, but they're not. As we get more, get used to things. I feel like, oh, I want more though. This is not good enough. I'm realizing the limitations of these things, these binary on-off options for my fingers. Or the Vive wands that are just very much these tools, and they're great. You can pick things up and you can put food in each other's face and stuff, but I can't feel is this a cheeseburger or is this a soda or is this a sword in my hand? I don't know. It's just I would only know by the visual cues, but with haptic technologies and glove, we can start to change that, right?
Absolutely. So I think that's kind of exactly what our vision for it has been as well, is that while there's some really great advancements going on right now, and there's just rapid technology pushing the both hardware and software side of VR, immersive technologies, everything, we've said from the get-go, it wasn't just building like a traditional data glove like what you had maybe with the 90s VR or with your super glove with the Virtual Boy, but one that had that full sense of touch and your fingers getting a natural gesture control was eventually going to be what the market really needed so we could get to the full potential of the computing platform. I mean, every sense that you bring in, so like Oculus bringing in the sense of sight, or like great companies like OASIC that are working on like audio really well and things like that are great, but it's going to need all five of our like senses being as much present as possible to get to that full potential of a metaverse type spatial computing platform. So we think it's a long road to get there still, but we're excited by what we're doing today with the sense of touch individually fingers. We've got some technology that allows us to do two different types of kind of motors at a time, so you can get subtle things like the tactile of a vibration, or you can get a little bit like kind of more like rigid body simulating or grip around an object, or like touching a table from a force feedback on the finger as well.
Cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the product a little bit more in depth. I mean, how does this work? What do you mean we can have force feedback? What kind of force are we talking about? How many sensors? How much track? Let's get into some of these details.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, I guess first and foremost, let's start with how your own hands and arms are portrayed in space, like what gets us to that point. So we've experimented with a couple different types of like actual hand tracking methods. Our current, we've been demoing is just using basic flex sensor technology. But what we're working towards is haptics that are kind of tracking agnostic, so that you can use your leap motion, you can use your flex sensor gloves, you can use your IMU based gloves. That's not what we want to be bringing to the table. But we're also using the Vive tracker. So if you see like our product, it has this housing that goes on the forearm, and right on top of that, we've been using the Vive tracker. It's been really great. We actually had at E3 2016, we demoed, and that was before the tracker was announced. So we were slapping entire Vive controllers under our housing, and boy, that thing was way too big. It was way too heavy. But that got loads of Power Glove jokes actually. But so being able to use the tracker has been really great for us, and just like bringing size down and bringing just overall weight and just the general look of everything. But then again, to the
track we're talking about Steam VR, Vive's tracking pucks. These are allowing, instead of just having the Steam Vive hand controllers for tracking, which is what we use to get our hands, there's additional for $100 per puck. You can buy additional tracking devices, and in VR Chat, we use them to track feet and hip now, so people got full body motion. Other companies, you're able to use these pucks to do other things, and you guys get to put them on your gloves so that you don't have to worry about that part of the technology. That's been solved with Lighthouse and
exactly.
And Steam.
And we believe that the other types of that tracking are going to get completely solved as well, in the sense of like things like a leap motion gesture track, or like a Noidum high five glove, or some of the like more traditional bend sensor based data gloves that have been in the market for a while now. We feel like those technologies are all going to keep kind of converging into a good kind of gesture tracking that's available for the market. And we just want to be providing that touch based component of it there. So in that, like our product right now, the alpha testers who have our glove, they have that truck for the forearm tracking. And they have a set of kind of motion tracking that we've developed in-house called Exotendant, that is a way that we get individual placement of the fingers, kind of in an inside-out type system, if you will, just because it's all contained within that glove, kind of a mechanical device. And then it has the vibration within the fingertip, and then it has the force feedback on each finger as well. We've moved away from that exotendant tracking currently, because that's what we're talking about, wanting to prove out as many type of tracking systems as we can. So our current prototypes that we're showing and kind of working towards have more of the bend sensor type glove in them. And we're also currently recruiting partners on the different tracking technologies so we can validate each of those.
Interesting. So, so how much is tracked? Are just the tips? Are the knuckles? So how many? Hold on a second. Hey, how's it going out there? Welcome to Gunter Universe. Please have a seat and enjoy the show. And please refrain from talking. Is somebody back there talking? I think somebody's talking. Shh, there's a show. Hey, Amy, welcome. Have a seat. I hope. Amy, shut up. Have a seat.
There's some great avatars in the crowd. We appreciate y'all.
I don't know where to sit.
Oh, that's Amy. Fucking go. All right. Well, you got 3 seconds to figure it out. Cool. So we're gonna keep going. Thanks for joining, everybody, all these new people. Mr. Penguin, Emmett, nice to see you. And if you are talking, you're gonna get kicked out right now. So stop.
No, I'll stop talking. I'm sorry.
Dad says stop. Okay. So let's keep going. How many tracking points? Or I mean, like, am my knuckles tracked? Am my fingers side to side being tracked too? Not just coming in and out, but to the sides. Our fingers do move in lots of different directions, right?
Yeah, for sure. So what we're showing right now, and kind of the bare minimum, is one starting with your wrist, and then you're going to want your full knuckles tracked from like kind of each one down the line. Then getting to that next step, we want to that's why we want to experiment with all these different tracking options, is to kind of see who is doing that finger side to side. I mean, because we're not doing that right now with our flex sensors. We're just kind of doing the up and down all the way down your finger. but it's about 12 degrees of freedom right now with our flex sensor solution.
So your overall hand has about like 26 or 27 degrees of freedom in it. The most that we've prototyped up to within some of our gloves, like one of the ones that Tom's actually specifically built, had 19 degrees of freedom being tracked in it. That hasn't been one that we've gone past having like only just kind of a couple prototypes of that style built. It has it's a pretty big like back in the lab testing type unit. But like you said, right now the current ones that we're using as the more kind of show pieces for demoing with people and things like that, and our more kind of full validation testings are 12 degrees of freedom, because we're about the same as what you would get from like a kind of a more standard data glove that you've been able to buy on the motion capture specific market in like kind of like the $1,000 range for the last like 10 years or so. It's and so that's why we're trying to be like, that's kind of the most kind of market industry standard for what you need out of a bend sensor based glove at a minimum. So that's what we're kind of working with right now to be kind of in that industry standard level with that on like at least the data glove side.
And I'm sure, more is better, but there's like a diminishing, returns at some point, because the more you add, the bulk of it comes, or the more weight, or,
Yeah, it really affects like your durability. It affects how especially hand size. Everyone has really different size hands. So building a glove for this person pretty much rules out a lot of the other people. So it's kind of it is that balance and act that you're talking about.
Because, there's been things like data gloves out there that have like 20 degrees of freedom tracked for about 15 years now. Those ones are just anywhere between like $9,000 and $24,000 for one glove. So like that's where a general, average consumer isn't going to use it. Maybe back lab research sides of like the VR world where, like headsets for a long time. Or, more like big budget movie studios that want to capture a full motion capture of a human hand to put in their CGI. But that's why we feel those technologies are going to continue to come down in price. We'll continue developing some of our own and on that side as well, and working with the leading ones that are out there in the VR community. Like, you've seen ones just like Manus or Glove One that have popped up kind of as some options in the more recent batch of VR startups. But what we're focused really on is making sure that sense of touch is there with each of those kind of more industry standard levels of tracking.
What about the force feedback? How strong is the force feedback?
Yeah, sure. So the force feedback, because obviously a big concern there is if it's too strong, is it going to hurt you? I think that's what when people grasp the concept, like, oh, this could get a little risky. But we want to keep it at a low level and kind of take advantage of some of the tricks of VR, and just like that you want to feel how good that is. Like you want to feel the levels that you expect. So we're just influencing and then causing at a basic layer a stop based off your surface interaction you're picking up of an object, and then it's up to the user to decide like, okay, that's where I want to be. I'm going to stop there too.
Right, because you could still push past. There's nothing like stopping your hand. Certainly nothing stopping your whole arm. That's not a body. Yeah. So it's giving you cues and matching that. That combined with the visual cues, right? Your brain normally, even without the just with visual cues, I've been, it works. You don't go any further. You see just the button being pressed, so why go through the whole board, or other things like that. So you find that you don't have to apply a lot of force then.
Hands, right?
Yeah.
That's been a lot of discussion in the community recently, is how much higher levels of immersion you get with that game than you do with some of the other ones, because of the time they crafted into your hand placement, whether it be grabbing the disc, grabbing the rail, grabbing onto a component. Their hands are quite well done in the visual cues that you get there. So with just the same blunt tools that you're using right now with those Oculus Touch controllers. So there's definitely levels of variance that can be done, just like anything in kind of immersive computing, right? From the developer side to make it more kind of full on presence inducing for the user, right? So if we give someone the more degrees of freedom with their finger, and you get a really skilled level of back-end algorithms controlling when you're interacting and getting pulls and tugs, or getting levels of subtle vibration as you go across an object, and you're going to get even more and even more further into believing that's real. It's just right now you have to there's kind of large barriers in the work that goes into giving those all matching up. And you like you said before, you kind of get diminishing returns. And if you don't have like those matched up, but you are tracking the fingers, it could not that subtle kind of pull you feel on the force feedback might do the opposite side that you expect of kind of showing you an object. Oh, I feel like it's there when it's not supposed to be yet. I might be colliding when you aren't. Things like that. So there are lots of kind of bodies or factors at work, if you will, and trying to make your hand feel like it's feeling something. But it's something that it's a challenge that we're just overly excited to continue working on and kind of get people, firsthand experiences tangibly touching digital world. So it's definitely cool to see how that level of force we're doing right now is enough to get that kind of first ball rolling on that.
Gotcha. And so it seemed like you do enough, but you don't want to like go too far, else you might we could detect it more. Like the further you go, the more precise maybe you have to, or something. Like get to the point where your brain automatically it needs to be filling in some of these gaps, right? Not you then trying to trust that this thing's completely 100%. Else every time it would pick up, then you wouldn't trust it anymore. Interesting.
Definitely. So just like any interface, there is a tiny learning curve that comes from that right now we're doing about 20 to 25% of the mean 18 to 50-year-old male script strength when we kind of tug back on your fingers at full force. So if you feel like you're getting a tug back on your fingers and okay, this is now what a full I'm in the object feels like, you start to learn that kind of over the progression over and over of just like we see in society with any type of interface. I mean, one of the jokes I kind of like to talk about is when Steve Jobs first showed the iPhone off and a reporter asked him, how are our thumbs going to use the touchscreen like that? And he just kind of shrugged it off of your learn, because it's a tool that you want to use. You're going to learn those muscle memory mechanics of how to do it. And what have we all done? Our thumbs have got extremely adept at holding an upright little 6-inch screen that we can tap and reach to. Right. We don't want it to be a point where everyone needs to learn every type of interface. That's kind of what we're trying to take away from within the tool side of this area. But if you have a slight bit of learning curve with, all right, this is what is kind of the natural full sense there, your brain, like you said, fills those cognitive gaps and allows yourself to get fully into it. So that's really the goal, is allowing what is that level of slight gap filling that we need your brain to do with also the smallest, most ergonomic factor in a kind of device on your hand.
Cool. Interesting. So are these wireless? How is it all being sensed and fed back into the computer? Is there IMU?
Yeah, so right now, so the IMU there's an IMU in the Vive tracker, but right now we're just tapping into the spare USB port on the Vive. So we're in the Steam VR platform, but it's something that's definitely wireless potential. I mean, there's a waist-mounted battery pack right now, but we're continually trying to kind of work to bring that size down a weight so that can actually go in the housing too.
Gotcha.
But everything, I mean, the only wires attaching you to anything off of you right now is the Vive wires. So,
sure. So you take advantage of the USB port that's on the headset. Yep. You basically tap into that, right? And we've seen other devices, I think, take advantage of that, right? Like that's one of the cool things about the Vive having that too, is so that future thinking that people would use it for attachments, peripherals, and things like that.
Exactly.
The Vive was
in the last few minutes, by the way. Sorry to just talk over you. There's just so many new people coming and going. Welcome, Cornbread. I haven't seen you in probably 5 months. Welcome back, brother. Yep, Cornbread Killer right there. His avatar is that.
That's pretty great.
I like it.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely some great avatars in the crowd. I appreciate a lot of them.
What are a couple of that? Are you anime fans?
I can't say I'm the biggest. Yeah. We have been. I like everything I've watched. To be honest, I've never just personally had a lot of time that I've gotten into it myself. Every time I've watched it with friends or anything, I mean, we've watched all of Sword Art, things like that. I've enjoyed. I was a big Gundam fan as a kid, but I can't claim to have gotten like extremely in-depth into anime fanhood.
There's a lot of anime fans around here. It's really
Which is fair.
I like it. No, they make good avatars.
If you've ever wanted, yeah, they're beautiful. And they're all, I assume they're all female because they're female avatars. I assume that's
I mean, I don't know. That might be a bit assumptuous.
No, it's so cool. They're all this whole culture of anime and traps and things. So many memes, and I'm so old and I don't get any of it. And it's just, it's funny to watch me just be around all these really cool hip avatars while I'm just this ugly thing. Apparently, they're just. What's wrong with my?
I don't think you're very ugly. I think you're pretty realistic, man. I mean,
random guy.
I would say you're pretty close for what. I mean, I would say I'm not very realistic to what I'm looking like. Actually, this is what my actual real life form is. I'm a humanoid.
Yeah.
It's pretty great living in society as a normal humanoid, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real backstory, that I built him, and then that's what made our company. And
you're not supposed to tell people that yet.
Well,
Jarvis gang is busted.
I've got my arm, I'm starting to merge with the machine. So my goal is actually to be you. So.
I mean, that's fair. It's being a fully functioning humanoid in American society that doesn't get detected every day. It's wondrous. It really is. Everyone should strive for that.
Let's keep going. Let's talk about this, the investment stuff, and then I want to go back and talk some stuff about like the STK, and then maybe a little bit on that hand size thing. We didn't go too much in that, but like you guys are starting to seek more investment, and there's just really cool. And I actually don't know much about it. Please tell us what Seed Invest is. It's a way to get investment, but not your traditional way, I think, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
Craig,
I'll hop on that. So Seed Invest is a crowdfunding platform, but it's, like you said, not traditional in the same way that like a Kickstarter, Indiegogo works, because it's an equity crowdfunding platform. We chose to go that kind of route based off of a lot of feedback that we've gotten from community from what they've had experience with hardware on sites like Kickstarter, Indiegogo. You get a lot of like, the vaporware type terms. And we really liked how being an equity opportunity kind of aligns what community support there would be out there along with what we'd want to be doing more as a long-term goal, knowing that this is a product that we want to see as kind of a full mass scale adoption when the market is ready for it, but we know it's not quite there right now. It's not something we wanted to have people just doing kind of a pre-order before the manufacturing is going, but actually any backing you do is actually buying equity securities in the company. So it's not quite like a full public offering in the sense that you have like shares that can trade day to day right now, but you are doing kind of similar to an early stage employee of a company, getting shares that would be actual cash value when you have like an exit to the company, or there is a public offering or anything like that would be the same way a venture capitalist or a founder would have a financial gain from a company. It's kind of give us that option to offer everyone in our kind of network and our communities an opportunity to come on the long-term journey with us in an early standpoint that wouldn't be kind of just saying, hey, we want you to pre-order the product before we know how we're going to manufacture it. It's more saying we actually want you to long-term be a part of what we're actually doing.
It's really freaking awesome. I would love to be a part of this kind of thing, right? Being able to invest in companies and instead of like trying to buy, it's like STEM. STEM was a classic Kickstarter in the VR community that it gotten. It's a problem. Where's it at? It's been 4 years later. So and you're buying this product that isn't made, and they go through all kinds of troubles, and now it's not basically ever going to get made. It would have been just cool to invest, because that's what I wanted to do, was kind of invest in early VR companies, because I want to see the technology succeed. Of course, I want it, but big part of it was just investing in companies. So that's a really cool option.
I appreciate that.
It's actually find that, or how that.
I think the first time we saw it actually was, Craig, you saw Virtuix doing one at CES a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, so CES 2016, Virtuix, if you guys all are familiar, Omni, the treadmill that had originally got some popularity on Kickstarter, They ran what they had called at the time a mini IPO through Seed Invest, and it was one of actually the first big campaigns that Seed Invest got a lot of publicity behind. And they raised actually about $3.5 million through Seed Invest, Virtuix did. And that was where they kind of got their follow-up funding to get the product out the door after they got that initial backing from Kickstarter. And we saw that as kind of like, oh, well, that's a really great kind of way to offer an opportunity to the community. But we felt it'd make more sense to do it a little bit earlier than like a pre-Kickstarter in that sense. So that we could be going right away to that full kind of early offering. And it's something that, if you guys are wanting to learn more about it, it is out there live right now on Seed Invest's site. So I would encourage you to check out our profile. We have, some cool videos of different demos with the gloves and things like that there, as well as a lot of information on it. But there's also a comment thread there. So any questions you may specifically had, I'll be popping on there pretty periodically throughout the campaign and answering some questions there. So feel free to directly ask anything you may have. But it is something that we've watched the platform grow and been really excited about what they've been able to do. One of the things we really do like about Seed Invest that drew us to it is they've got a reputation for kind of doing more vetting or diligence on the companies on their platform. So they're by no means the only equity crowdfunding platform out there, just like Kickstarter is not the only, backer-based platform out there. It's, but they have been a platform since about 2013 or 2012, I can't remember. They've had about 220 companies raise successfully through their site. And they have about they have about 1,000 companies apply monthly to raise on their site, and only about 1% of that make it through their due diligence process to be allowed to be listed. So it's, they kind of have a very unique model in the way that they do their equity crowdfunding, and that they want to really vet before their community, before they really put things out to because they have about a 200,000 investor community directly on their platform themselves. So they want to really kind of foster that early stage backing of tech companies in a way that allows everyone, or as they call it, the other 98% of investors in the world that aren't accredited, opportunities to get in at those kind of early scales there. So we just really like, I guess, kind of their long-term vision for how they built the model, which is what sought us to wanting to partner with them. And after watching about a year and a half of growth from the platform, after watching that original Virtuix campaign that we had seen, and then another company that we have a lot of respect for what they've done as a kind of a peripheral and location-based stuff in VR, Zoom, they also went and raised over about $1 million through that platform as well. So there's been some different successes in the VR space in the platform. So that's another thing that led us to it, and also is kind of specifically in the hardware peripheral side of the platform with an omnidirectional treadmill and a locomotion aspect to the bike, and so. We thought it kind of was a perfect storm of what we were looking for in being a VR-driven community, but also more of a long-term backing community through the investment type platform.
I have to apologize for one thing. It's these screens here. They're broken, and I would have had your guys' videos on there and all kinds of great stuff. Pictures and things, but everybody's going to have to use their imagination and then go to contactci.co. Or, of course, the Seed Invest, like you're saying, you have a profile there, Seed Invest, Contact CI. You guys know how to Google and find all that stuff.
YouTube or Vimeo, or there was a nice article on VR Focus just this past week that has a link to some of the demos directly in there right now. So there's some good spots to check out if you want to see everything out there online. And like I said, happy to drop either an email or a comment in that thread if they lead to any questions.
Cool. Okay, so I've got now my alpha kit, or when the kits are available. Do you consider these developer kits, or it's really before like a DK one, if that's what you guys may be going for? Is this your DK one?
It's definitely an alpha. I mean, I think there's a lot that we knew still needed to be done, but we did want to get that experience to learn how to put something out there and get it to people, and make sure we had some of those bumps in the road just ironed out before we eventually did jump up to like a developer's kit if we did go that route. But it's definitely it's an alpha, and we have a support period along with the alpha just to make sure everything runs smoothly, everything gets up and running for our testers.
So it's also
excellent.
It'd be kind of similar to like the Valve Knuckles right now. Like they're out with some select devs. Actually, more recently, I think they've kind of started calling it a full dev kit, but wanting to get some kind of early testing water. So I think it was about Steam Dev Days, November last year, that they originally showed those. So it's kind of similar to that point in the timeline, but on a little bit smaller of a scale, just because of scale of company size. Which is a part of why we're coming to Seed Invest, of course, is we want to be able to get more of those pilots out. We want to get more of those types of validation size units out there, because we've had a ton of interest from developers and researchers. I mean, from places from people reaching out from like Moscow to one of our developers who's in Stockholm, all the way to a dev team in Honolulu or a dev team in LA to what people in Tokyo, or we have one of our content teams we've been working with the most is in Melbourne. There's lots of interest for this type of product, and it's something that we've had executives at big platform headset companies say is more of a win than an if for the VR industry as a whole. It's just something that we need to get a chance to really get out there and get as much kind of testing and validation improving, because like we were talking about at the beginning, there's a lot of complexities in the subtleties of your hand's sense of touch that just need to have a lot of time to work those kinks out. And unfortunately, that type of hardcore engineering R&D takes funding, and it's something that we'd love to be able to just have some country grants or things like that, but it's something that we want to build for the community, and we want to be able to get to that point that you feel like Wade strapping in with a glove and feeling like you're fully able to touch and grab whatever you're doing in your if you will metaverse or Oasis kind of environment.
Ready Player One dropped. RPO, one of the beloved, famous VR books. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's called Ready Player One. I don't know. There's not everybody. I don't know everybody, and I've just been trying to find a way to share this thing that's just I'm so used to it. It's hard to even describe because it's just part of life, it seems. But
that's fair.
Especially for all of us. It's a great VR book. It's fun. It's very light, and it describes a VR chat kind of place, a place where the VR world is more profitable and there's more activity and attendance than in the real world, because the real world kind of went a little bit dystopian and went to shit a little bit. And it's a really great story. And there's a movie coming out next year. That's how everybody knows what this is, because there's a movie by Spielberg coming out next May or something like that, in which then we find out that they ruined it, and now the name Gunter kind of sucks because everybody hates the movie in the world.
Let's not start downplaying that the movie's going to be awful already. I mean, we got some time.
I'm doing the opposite. I'm doing it's going to suck, and then I can be like, oh, sweet, it didn't suck.
No, that's also fair. I mean, reality of expectations is super important, especially with our VR community as we have. There's a lot of trumpeteers on different Reddit boards and stuff that get the hype cycle going.
Yeah, exactly.
But
in the book, they have full body immersion, right? There's different all kinds of great technology in there, but it's not just haptics with gloves, but it's haptics in the whole suit, whole haptic suit, which is really cool. And so you guys are getting us to that level. So thank you. I think you're doing the.
We're trying. We'd like to do our part. I mean, you're getting us to that level as well. You've been pushing a hard time on these types of immersive environments, and getting people in as a community and the social network. I mean, we've been it might be my first time getting in the avatar here, with you guys at the stage, but we've been following from the interwebs and other sides for a while, and we appreciate everything that kind of community has been able to build as a whole in VR. So we're excited to do our part.
It's a crazy awesome community. I mean, it's been just a pleasure to be a part of, see it grow. There's so many more people now part of the community. It's still just getting started. It's amazing. But let's go back. Let's talk about markets. You kind of who you've been delivering to, who's been interested. They're all across the world. There's some people that are companies. Is there a target market at this point? Is there consumer interest? Is there business interest? Where do you see this being used? Do you see them being used in games? Do you see that it's like a medical field or something? Or what are you guys thinking?
You want to hop on that?
Sure. I mean, it's with our alpha batch, we kind of wanted to explore a little bit of everything here and there, just to see in the small batch, like what are these different people doing, what's it work best for, who's it work best for, from massage therapy to more of manufacturing line training to kind of exploring your medical training too. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of people come to medical first, and it's something kind of near and dear to our hearts, and like eventually being able to get those surgeon trainees into VR headsets with our gloves on, actually feeling that surgery, kind of being able to just to get the muscle memory, muscle motions of what they're doing before jumping into a cadaver or jumping into, you know, an actual surgery, and then the risks associated with there versus just being able to kind of press that restart button if you do mess up.
And that's why it's kind of important for these things to be like not just controllers like wands or Oculus Touch controllers that are learning how to work inside the human body, you know, with tools. These turning into scalpels or whatever isn't good enough. You need the full hand, and for the hand to learn the muscle memory, to learn what a tool feels like and what the intricacies of going into. Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the ways we kind of look at it is right now you asked if consumer interest, and there is, but it's not quite the most viable in the sense that at-home market isn't buying a bunch of peripherals for their stuff. I mean, the Touch sold and had a lot of adoption, but that's because it was a first-party platform product right there. If you know, you've got cool devices out there like Tactical Haptics or some of the other ones that you aren't necessarily seeing as wide-scale adoption, because you're not necessarily having as much content or things that are built for them on that end. On the opposite side of that, you've had headsets and things be supported by a 40-year-long research industry that, you know, has things like training and education development and different enterprise kind of research side use cases that have really been large supporters there. I mean, yes, the consumer side of VR has gotten a large awakening in the last 3 to 4 years and has pushed a big market, but people forget there was multi-million dollars of research going into it every year just from the DoD budget on the side of simulation training. So we see that kind of being one of the main areas we can go after first for adding that sense of touch in those hand-based trainings. Like you said, that fine level of dexterity that you get from having your fingers plus that level of touch can give you big different levels of muscle memory-based tasks that you can teach someone. I mean, you could see something like in the long-term future where if you've got someone with a control device in VR that gives them, really levels of natural hand use case and say a telepresence control robotic arm in a factory that's miles and miles away, you can start adding the blue collar to this home automation workforce that we've had to the white collar revolution the last kind of 15 years of allowing someone not necessarily have to go to the factory to be able to still do that kind of full task in that job. That's a long-term kind of roadmap that comes to that. So it's really getting those testing and training enterprise use cases in the short term, continuing to do kind of small pilots with different developers on things like location-based applications or things for the kind of more specific developer kind of applications that different niches are looking at. And then eventually in that kind of time frame of like by 2020 being able to roll out with full consumer type applications. That's what we're looking at kind of use case wise.
Cool. What are your features, and is there other features that you're working on?
Yeah, so as far as the biggest features are the haptics that we're doing right now, and the two that we are doing that Craig had mentioned earlier, it's the vibration and the force feedback. Vibration being focused really on the fingertips, and the force feedback pulling on the back of your fingers to really give us both sides of that interaction. As well as I think I'd mentioned it with our senior designs, we really looked into what other pieces of haptics and little aspects can be brought in. So there's things that definitely are being put in the pipeline at some point, from temperature to your pressures to, people want to actually have weight. Because even if you're picking something up, there's no way to really feel that the weight that's in there. That's not something we're working on now, but it's something that definitely we want to be bringing in all those different haptic interactions and just to make things kind of really as realistic as possible.
Super cool. Super cool. What else do I have on mine? Did you kind of talk, like you're saying the longer term, but was that like tele-robotics or something that you were kind of
A
alluding to
little
with the
bit, yeah, a little
workforce?
bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I actually really hadn't heard much about that. What's tele-robotics?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind
So
of obvious, but like,
telerobotics is,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's I guess the most prevalent way that you can kind of describe it for real world applications right now today is you've probably seen those robots that have a Skype kind of tablet on them, and that someone is video
Yeah.
chatting themselves in to kind of give them a physical presence in an environment they're not there at, so you can kind of talk to their face, but they're
I
not
want to
actually
do
really there
that.
themselves, but
I
they're able to
want
move
to
it
do
around.
that. I
Yeah, I
want to
mean,
be on the
I've
tablet
actually even seen
somewhere.
them at some of the VR parties. It's pretty awesome, right? But
Yeah.
what we see is like a kind of another, a kind of more like tele-robotics on a VR side right now. Because a lot of people may know the project Space VR. They, they're
Hmm.
working on putting a satellite up into orbit so that you can log into your headset and watch like through that camera. Those are kind of like two different
Yep.
like sides of that coin, right? Of like someone who's inside of a robot controlling it, but then also someone else being able to log into some sort of external hardware from their headset and see through it there. Those combining with like a robotic side that has a hand that can naturally be controlled is where we can see systems like touch-based control systems that are only going to be really useful in VR in the next couple of years, really seeing a long-term application that can actually add that same kind of hand and reach into the real world without having to be in that physical placement. So like, I mean, one of the like earlier applications that would provide that we've talked about even all the way since back we were at Syracuse early founding this company, um, bomb ordnance units. Right now, at least in America, they use a 2 degree of freedom robotic hand that goes out on a um, standard kind of treadmill tracked robotics base, and they use an analog joystick to pick it up and then shoot a laser through it. That's something where we see that you can actually improve that process by putting a robotic hand that has the same dexterity of a human and someone with a control system that has natural motion tracking as well as natural sense of touch to give them that ability to get a human hand inside there taking apart the device without having to risk the safety of the human being up close and personal with it. Or
Hmm.
a more kind of sci-fi version of that is, instead of having the movie like Gravity being able to happen, you have the robotic arm out on side of the ISS doing the repair with the astronaut controlling it on the inside of it. Those are different like levels of applications that you can see that would be telerobotics and tele VR all together as one. We're nowhere close to those kind of things happening yet, but long term, that's what technologies like ours and some of the others that are being built out there could combine to allow society to do.
Oh man, so cool. So cool. It makes me of that movie Surrogates too. Like in
Uh-huh.
300 years, then the whole body will be that way. I'll just keep it inside. Well, I keep my body inside like all the time, anyways, and never go out. But
Hmm.
so I never, ever, ever have to go outside again. I can
Yeah.
preserve my beautiful face, this beautiful body inside, some pristine room where there's no
Hey, we just try to live
potential for me
forever,
to
right?
age. Or yeah, I want to live forever, and I want to send out my robot body to, pick up the groceries or to, I don't know,
Hey, I can't say
anything I
I
want to do.
endorse it for everyone, but there's going to be some who think that's great life.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a dystopian future that is a utopia to somebody else, right?
That's funny. Yeah, yeah.
There's
What else? How
I
about
mean,
questions
speaking of,
from the audience? Oh, yeah, please.
oh yeah, I was going to say just like speaking of that kind of, you're in a atmosphere that you're just feeling all kinds of hot haptics, almost Matrix-esque egg there. It's protected. You can't be harmed in any way.
Yeah.
There's a more recent book I've seen that's I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but the writer of Maze Runner, that trilogy, he's
Yeah.
doing it. It's got a kind of a VR centric theme to it, so I would recommend checking it out. I'm sorry I'm blanking on it, but their VR system is, they actually call it the Coffin, and you lay
Okay.
in it. In his book, so you lay in it, and it kind of gives you, it has different whooshes and fluids and things like that, so that you can feel like like a hit to your side or things like that, or pitter patter of running on like a wet surface on the bottom of your toes, that kind of thing. So it's, you actually lay down into a box and fully kind of submerge yourself that way. So I mean, just there's definitely even more recent sci-fi than Matrix that are envisioning that kind of device as the input in the way that we're interacting with our spatial computing in the future in some ways. Would recommend reading the book out there. It's the first of a trilogy that's coming out. You know, the writer of Maze Runner, you can find it out there. I don't know what it's called, I'm sorry. But definitely a really good book.
That's right. I like to give people Easter hunts or Easter egg hunts, right? Like that makes sense. Go find their websites. Go find the name of that book. We all know that.
Enjoy your own search.
Enjoy it. Yes. It takes you 2 seconds on Google. This audience knows how.
You will feel much more rewarded by getting out there and having fun on the interwebs.
Yes. But like interactive.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep babbling a little bit until somebody asks a question from the audience.
Wonderful.
Bring it on.
Oh shoot.
Handy.
Puns. Tom?
I'm so sorry.
Fans.
1 million.
Oh, hold on. I'm losing tracking a little bit.
Okay, let me grab that there then.
Yeah.
So if I understand the question, he's asking what would we expect the price point to be? I'm going to be a little bit delicate here because, you know, some of you know early hardware communications of ballpark prices can lead to some dicey community thoughts. But we our goal is to get it down to where you're not paying any more than what you would expect a normal percentage of your peripheral to the device would be. So similarly to like kind of your Xbox controllers right now, you have about a $60 to the margin of your $350 device, or the kind of other way around of what you're seeing from like the touch controller of a $99 device to your headset being the $399 within the bundle there. We don't want to be on that consumer standpoint until we are able to get those kind of margins as the component technology is fitting into what you would see as your normal controller for your headset you're getting there. So right now I would say expect that the controller that you're able to buy with the headset that you are buying in the next generations of headsets would have it worked in as a component that allows that margin to be normal and acceptable within the market space. I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer if I can't give you an exact number right now. But it's something that we are at a much cheaper price point than our other competitors that are out there, almost a tenth of the price for different data gloves or haptics on just the testing and prototyping units. And it is our goal of ours to make it accessible of a technology by keeping that component cost down when it is on a consumer-facing device.
Excellent. So $50. No, wait, no, that's not what you said.
$50 confirmed.
A ballpark.
You said it, Gunter.
And it'll come with a free copy of Half-Life 3. There you go. Winner, winner.
Your mouth, not mine. But you will get Skyrim without buying it.
Yes, exactly.
This is going to be the one time you get Skyrim without buying it.
Yeah.
By the way, that PS4 bundle looks great. If you don't have one yet, you should look at that this holiday season. We have another question? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so right now, as we've kind of started developing, we've just stuck with that Steam VR system because it's been so open with the hardware development. We were able to take the Steam VR native classes last fall and experimented with building the Steam VR tracking directly into our devices, but then the Vive tracker came out last CES, and it was almost too convenient to be able to just slap that on and experiment and with different and experiment with it. For sure, I mean, we definitely want to be exploring the Oculus tracking system and PSVR tracking system. and in theory, it could kind of just be slapped on top of it, depending on the various constraints of the system, slapped on top in place of the area where the vibe tracker is. But we want to make sure that right now we're just focusing with the Steam VR as we build out the other portions of our system.
So, and a lot about that there is we want to be focused on the technology that we can be building the best value add to that. So, like Oculus has their Constellation or tracking system, which is their positional tracking that's comparable to the Steam VR or the PS Move kind of tracking system that PlayStation has that's comparable to their positional tracking. They have those systems worked out that they know they like to use on their systems. And so we want ours, like we said earlier, to be motion tracking agnostic. That also includes the position tracking. So we don't want our force feedback or our vibration or any of our sense of touch technology to impede with that level of tracking that the platform wants to provide through their controller. So right now, we may have it as just Steam VR in our prototyping because that's what we're best and able to easiest, most efficiently work with and kind of on the cost efficiency side. But that doesn't mean that we're not trying to get things like Constellation tracking access from Oculus, who years and years ago maybe have been more vocal about that they were going to open that up the same way that Steam has opened up their licensing, but hasn't really as of late, or PlayStation, which just honestly isn't as an effective of a positional tracking technology, but it's one that we can work with. It's just not as much what we're tailored and focused on right now. So long story short there, what I'm saying is it's not really our focus to exclude or include anyone outside of that. We want it to be working with what is the best tracking solutions that are available for everyone else to be using.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a couple more things, but Bob, do we have more Twitch questions? Because I wouldn't mind hearing another one.
Always love the Twitch.
Before that, tell us about the Cincinnati VR meetup. That was not a thing at some point, and then it became a thing. And how did that happen?
You got that, Tom?
Sure, yeah. So it had been, this was even before my time living in Cincinnati, but Reverend Kyle, for any of you who don't know, he's a big
shout out.
Oh, yeah, so Dayton, Ohio. Oh, we know them. I know. Yeah. Yes, okay. There's more than I thought.
So he and
cool.
I think it was a researcher at Miami University, Miami of Ohio, started the original Cincinnati Dayton VR meetup a couple of years ago. And then they had a couple, and then I think with Kyle's move to Seattle, it just kind of got pushed to the wayside. Sure. And then we we graduated, moved to Cincinnati, or Craig's from here, but we wanted to get the meetup back going. I mean, there was a community that clearly wanted it. We saw the success that all these other meetups were having and just bringing their communities together. And the Midwest isn't quite like the coasts where there's buzz, there's stuff going on. We want to be able to bring as many people together that are doing VR, whether they are developers, whether they've been in it for years, or whether they're like, oh, cool, this VR thing that my kid wanted me to come try. We just want them all to be able to come together and meet each other and like foster that community here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something we've enjoyed doing quite a bit. We actually just recently had our 1 year meetup. We have one that would get together about every other month. Try to do every month now. But for a while there, it was every other month. So we've had a year's worth of that. We've got another one that we're planning to. We're taking November off just with all the holidays and everything. But we've got one coming for like the second week of December. On our like meetup page, we've got a group of just over like 350 that are in it. We've got about 50 to 60 attending each event, which is nice.
I think we're actually at 398 right now. So if anyone in the audience wants to join to get us to that.
Get us over 400, that'd be great.
Big 400 number.
From Ohio here, actually. We had a VR chat Ohio meetup. People that just found each other in VR chat had an Ohio meetup. There was about 13 of them or so.
Oh, cool.
There are. Recently, we've gotten connected with more of the other meetups, like the Cleveland, the Akron, having some conversations about ways we can get kind of a whole Ohio group doing things together. It was nice to have like originally reaching out to Kyle when we first were like, hey, we want to get this together, like, you know, what is kind of some stuff you guys had work earlier before you didn't before you decided to move on from doing it, and it's something that we've found to be very beneficial for bringing some of, like we said, in Cincinnati is maybe not as like boisterous of a tech town, but there's a lot of really cool stuff going on here. So it's been nice to bring developers in a space that they can, talk about the technologies, or just other people that might not have access to headsets, getting a chance to try them and check that out. And that's really a lot of what we were inspired from by being members of the Chicago Meetup. We would actually drive up, a couple hours just to go to those ones before, and that void time when we didn't have one in between us or anything. That Josh Farks and the Cubicle Ninja guys had been really putting on a great meetup there, and we saw that as an opportunity to really help evangelize the community in a town that needed it where we were. So it's been just as beneficial for us to have a platform to bounce ideas off of a VR community that gets together regularly and pays attention to what's going on and things like that, as it's been great to just be able to see the other growth from people getting together and talking about a shared interest.
Yeah, so it's making me remember now that it's cool. Miami University there, and there has a little bit of VR stuff there. I remember Reverend Kyle's video of him demoing or showing off for me the first time, redirected walking inside their gymnasium there. So
yeah, the cave stuff.
The cave stuff and redirected walking is really cool for those that don't know. As long as you have a large enough space, I don't remember exactly how big it is. Let's just say 50 foot by 50 foot or whatever meters that is. You'll have to figure that out. As long as it's a certain amount of size, then you can be fooled into thinking that you're walking forever in a straight line or whatever. But you're actually just walking in circles. And it's just the technology sort of turning you a little bit at a time. You don't realize it's turning you, and it's cool to see. Just type in redirected walking. Maybe you have to add VR to that in YouTube, and I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Experience, from my understanding.
Yep. Bob actually, he's been to both. We went to the Void in Utah, and then Bob got to do the Ghostbusters up there in New York as well.
Oh, you did?
Oh, cool.
Awesome. Interesting.
I think, I don't know, was Ghostbusters like that same size as the Serpent Revenge that we tried in there? Like a quarter? They said that's a quarter of a full set. So I think what people have seen so far is just quarter sets. I'm not sure if they actually have a full.
Okay. Very cool.
Oh, cool.
Just
they definitely
segue.
did loop us back. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I've never actually done the Void myself. I mean, I don't think Tom has either, but as a part of the Seed Invest platform, they do tiers similarly to kind of like how they do the Kickstarter. If you incentivize to back at a different level for this kind of reward, you get. It's more focused on higher levels of investment. They're based off of how the platform works. So while of course, it's open to anyone being able to do the legally minimum level of investment of $500. We're encouraging some of those kind of larger players to still get involved so that we can get kind of the normal traditional VC angel kind of platform part of it. And so anyone that is in the 145 or above range of investment, $145,000 or above range investment, we're going to go on a trip with them to the Void's opening of the Disney one that they just announced, because we thought that would be kind of a good way to get kind of a community together from that kind of bigger group and check that one out there. So it's something we're excited to see. And so I'm a big Star Wars nut and fan, so I'm excited to check that out.
So it's in Orlando, right?
On the trip yet, but it is something that we're going to get together and do. So we'll let you know.
Yeah, because I'm 2 hours south of Orlando, and it is Orlando. I'm not like hallucinating, right? Like, yeah.
Correct.
So I definitely want to check that out.
Is it the Orlando one? It is there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I believe they're opening one at both, actually, from what I saw.
Right.
Okay. So yeah.
I think that's right. All right, cool. So definitely hit me up and travel up there, meet you guys, and hang out.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'll hit James. I'll hit those guys up too. Let them know Sweet.
January
I'll let
5th.
those guys
cool.
know when
January
we're
5th.
coming, and maybe we can get some special treatment, or who knows?
Yeah, very
Just someone to
much so.
pretend like I'm the man. I know people. Yeah, I can get you in. I don't know. We'll see. But those guys love us. They love VR people. They love you guys because all of us in the early VR industry are just close. It's all about come on, man.
That's one of the things that's been the most exciting thing for me is being in Cincinnati. Every time we travel, whether to be San Fran, Seattle, LA, there's just welcoming friends from the community that want to make sure that we can get exposure to who we need to in the town, or just see what needs to be seen and sites wise in town and things like that. So I think it's been amazing how great the VR community has grown organically, and I hope to continue seeing that.
It's been pretty cool. Going back to the meetup, one more thing. I thought it was December.
Oh, Bob with the knowledge. Appreciate it.
No way.
Machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay. So Christmas, guys, you want to go to Disney World for Christmas?
How's it going, Ghost?
Dude, Christmas at the Void.
Right, Christmas at the Star Wars Void. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Meetup though, you were asking questions.
Star Wars
I'm
Christmas.
sorry, I get the rail.
Just quickly. Nah, that's what this is about. I'm glad. There was a Cincinnati, Dayton, Ohio meetup once, and we had a camera there. And we could see in VR chat people that were logging into VR chat to join us, and then we'd be their first VR experience, saying hello to them, and then we had a screen and we could see them, so we could tell them, hey, yes, we're watching you, we know exactly what you're wearing, and all that kind of stuff. So that was like 3 years ago.
That's pretty awesome.
And
I
forgot all about that.
Yeah.
In VR chat here. VR chat's very old, guys. We've been doing this stuff for 15 years. I'm not sure if you realize we've been on Steam for 15 years. Before Steam was around. It's really great story.
Actually, the original time I think anyone from VR Chat or heard about it was OC2 when I met Jesse. So that's, I think we just briefly met at that time. So I think it's been exciting to see how it's been a community that's been around forever. Not forever, but you know what I mean, forever in the sense of the early consumer VR days here.
Yeah.
And continue to find ways to grow and incorporate new and exciting environments. So it's definitely cool to see.
Yeah, it just started exploding the last few months. There's definitely over 100 people all times a day, and there's usually around 200 now, and it's getting up to 3 where it's hitting max. It's just
that's awesome.
That's why we're lagging so bad, is because there's so many people that want to be here for this, and I don't lock the doors, and we're okay. Nobody's crying. It does degrade the performance. Luckily, the people watching at home don't see the shaky cam that I'm seeing right now in my eyeballs, but this is how we get together, and being together is what's really important. All right, so I'm good with my questions. Audience, do you have any questions? Dumb ones are fine. No, there's no dumb question, but if you don't really know about this stuff, if you're not really into all this.
Yeah, and I'm happy to explain anything in any ways.
By all means. If I don't have hands to raise, I'm sorry. If it hadn't already been asked, what's your primary material for the gloves? Leather, cloth?
Yeah, so the at the base layer, what's actually touching your skin, it is leather. It's or cabretta leather, so it's more of a sheepskin, actually. But it's soft kind of golf glove material. That allows some stretch as well. It doesn't get too hot and sticky after extended playtime. But
we've experimented with a few different materials though, but the kind of cloth glovey types structure has been what's been the most ergonomic comfortably. We've worked with actually University of Cincinnati has a really good fashion design school. And we've worked with one of the professors there on doing some custom gloves from different fabric sourcings and things like that. That's been a really beneficial way for actually looking at how we can make sure that glove is as comfortable as possible on your hand. By also understanding we have a lot of questions to answer on the hygiene side of that if it's multiple users, in a arcade type format or things like that. So there's definitely some things to be continued experimenting with there, but taking the model of, you have your golf glove, you use your only golf glove with the leather has been what's been best so far.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah. If you want gloves, you got to just get your own, man. Right? These are personal. Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest holdup on like the arcade setting up right now.
Me.
Sure.
The short
Yes, me.
character up here.
Sir Oblivious.
Yes.
What you got?
And the few people who get my name right.
Hey, it's not that hard. It must be.
You guys were mentioning different tracking methods, though, for actually tracking like the finger positions themselves. And you mentioned something about flex sensors, and that's something that struck me as confused, mainly because I've never heard of those before. What exactly are those?
Yeah, so they're how familiar are with like electronics and like say resistors as a component?
Pretty familiar. I build electronics as part of my job.
Okay, cool. So a flex sensor, it's just a variable resistor. So kind of as you bend it, it changes resistance. If you're not familiar with resistance, it kind of just changes value across a scale. So that then you can program that to be, say, when it says 0, your finger is going to be here, but when it says 500, your finger is going to be at the other end of that spectrum. When programmed correctly and kind of calibrated to your own hand movements, it actually will be able to replicate what you're doing.
I was thinking that the best option would be something mechanical, but that seems to be more electronic based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of it is actually how you lay them out on the hand, making sure things cover the different degrees of freedom and the different joints and knuckles properly. Like Craig had mentioned it, we've experimented with this, our exotendon tracking method, which is a bit more of that mechanical, like biomimetic, like copying biology methods of actually mimicking how the tendons work to control your own realistic hands and fingers. And that is something that we are definitely had some successes with and want to be continue developing with. But when it came to actually the tracking system, it was because it was custom developed, it was just a little bigger than what we wanted to be putting into the device at the time. So what brought us to the flex sensors.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah,
Great question, Oblivious.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
You are not oblivious. You were paying attention. You need to...
Yeah, you are quite ironic with the name there.
That's hilarious because the name it's actually because before I used to make a bunch of stupid decisions in games and stuff that people wonder how the hell did I not notice that very obvious thing sitting right in front of me.
I know exactly that feeling.
Perfect. Yeah.
I like the backstory.
She's
Good
like,
canon.
Did you even try to look for the thing? You had to come get me to find the thing that's right here in the top shelf, eyeball level. What's wrong with you?
Everybody knows the Jungler went all the way around the entire map, and I never even saw it.
Sorry, yeah.
I mean, obviously there's the Gunter inspiration for the name, and I know it's not your original name. Is that the only reason you went with that as your name? Is the RPO reference, or is there other backstory that I've not been privy to?
Let's say a glitch out version.
Well, so when I created my name and persona, it was before talk show VR stuff. Hey, if you can hear me, I can hear you. Please don't talk during the show. Cool, thank you. No, I can still hear you. If you can hear me, it means I can hear you.
They're behind the
even if you whisper. Go back to the spawn area. It started in Minecraft was the first social VR stuff that I was doing, and so I needed a name right, and so I didn't want to be the things that I'd been in the past or like boring my real life name. I really wanted to. Now I'm in VR. I'm gonna be a person here. Yeah. Huh? Oh. So what am I going to be? And so I took, the book that I was reading, Ready Player One. I really loved all that content, just thinking of all kinds of VR related stuff, cyberpunk stuff. And then I thought, well, I want something that's going to be like a real sounding name. I didn't want something, I wanted to actually sound like a name, and I sort of wanted to give myself a full name. So when I was filling out like Google Forms or emails and setting up things, I had a full name because I had to make up something anyways. So I took my love of Ready Player One and took the name Gunter because it sounded like a real name, and I wanted to use it as a name, not as a type of person. And I added my love for Hunter S. Thompson, and I merged these things together and created the persona of Gunter S. Thompson, and that is what I've chosen.
No, I like it a lot.
I love it.
I remember even the first time we met in person, you had introduced yourself as Gunter and tried to, I think it was, at OC2 Beach House, tried to make people believe it wasn't because of Gunter. And I liked it. You were like, no, it's just my name. That's the name. And I like that. I wanted a full name with it. That's awesome.
No, it is, it's plenty of Ready Player One, but no, I really wanted, a name.
Still there.
And so, is the what? Maybe. We'll find out later. So yeah, Gunter S. Thompson. That's me. My name. My mom thinks it's weird.
That's this guy hosting us all here tonight. We appreciate it, Gunter S. Thompson. Everyone give him a round of applause.
What's happened? The show's turned the other direction. I'm starting to get interviewed, and
I was just curious. I turned the tables, if you will.
I even get packages from to Gunter S. Thompson from.
No way.
So the family.
That actually brings up another curiosity of mine. How do you get packages to the RV?
Well, I don't live in the RV anymore, so yes, that's.
There it is. That's how that happens.
That is how that. Well, I mean, wherever I would be too, I would get them through. There's obviously means people that have. You stay at camp centers, or you're staying somewhere, or you get a post office box, or you can open up something and have things forwarded. You can have people at home check your mail and send them. I don't know. It's all kinds of methods, but. No, I moved out of the RV a year and a half ago or so when Room Scale came out. I was like, this isn't really working out too much anymore. I only got 2 foot by 2 foot and needed to get, and I owned my home and I was renting it out. So just changed my lifestyle up. So yeah, for those who don't know, I was living in an RV doing VR. It was really pretty cool story. I enjoy being able to tell this.
Definitely.
Pretty cool story. It was neat traveling around an RV on my Verizon wireless connection. It was unlimited, so I could be on as much as I wanted. I was doing this show through
just living the H life as a Gunter,
Just living the H life. So yeah, RV is a big part of Ready Player One. It's not why I went and got into RVing. I wanted to do live in an RV for over a decade, and so, but it was the Ready Player One, though, that sparked it all up again. So there's definitely a lot of influence there. But
very exciting stuff. Well, we appreciate you having us on here today, Gunter.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. Let's do the typical. Where can people find you, follow you, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, personally, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, all of that at Craig C.F. Douglas. Same name I have here, but with underscores for the other social platforms. The company, though, you can find us at @contact_CI on all the social platforms there as well. I said earlier, I would encourage going to the seedinvest.com and checking out our profile. There's a lot of good information and videos there, or if you want to just kind of go to the different video sites like YouTube, you can see some of our demos or previous interviews and things like that to learn more about Contact as a whole.
Nice.
Yeah, and then my personal Twitter social media is TF Buchanan 4. Find me on Twitter, Instagram. But yeah, go to the contact pages, contact_CI, see the Seed Invest page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those.
Excellent. Definitely do it. Check it out.
Cool.
These guys have given their time up to come tell us about their story. Go read about their story and maybe, at least throw some likes or invest in Seed Invest. If you're
and invest in us.
We appreciate all of your time today, and we hope you can enjoy us on the Haptic journey.
Me too. So that's pretty much it for you guys that are in VR chat. Know that there are events every day of the week. Well, pretty much every day of the week. And you can find that information about that on vrchat.com. There's a calendar up there. There's our Discord. If you guys aren't part of our Discord, join the Discord. That's a big thing. And go to guntersfinish.com. You join that. I think most people have joined that. There's like 4,000 people on there, it seems. I don't know. But yeah, become part of our community. We love it. It's awesome. Thank you guys for watching at home and where Bob is in the camera there.
Appreciate the phone, Bob. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you, Bob. Great. And thanks everybody for coming out to the show. This has been most excellent. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of new people. Oh, well, thank you. And let me try to play some outro music for us here because I like to do that, but unfortunately.
I just got this game today.
One second. This is what's happening. Cheers, everybody. I'll see you next time on Gunter Gibberish next Tuesday.
Let's go.
That's right. And now we can stretch our legs and get up and dance. And if you don't hear music, it's because your sound's all the way down. I'm going to turn that out. Thanks, guys.
I got angry because I've never used it anymore.
I'm gonna. Okay, I was just went with it. I'm fine with that.
I mean, since the show's over.
Thanks, man.